Yeah.
He's like actually part of their family, and I thought, Mike's never here, and I want Mike to be like Pa, and you know, when he's building the cabin, I think that might be, is it Little House on the Prairie when he's building their cabin?
Yeah, he builds their cabin.
Man, Pa's so sexy.
Okay, so I'm Jillyanne, and my channel is Dirt Patch Heaven. Formerly, we were like a prepper homesteading type of a channel, and now we are full-time RVers with kind of an emphasis on tiny house living.
And I'm Marisa. My channel is Living a Good Story, and we just finished up a 1-year RV trip around the country. And now we are just transitioning back into home life and trying to figure out what our good story is.
And I'm Megan of North and South, and Marisa and I were friends before, and her journey kind of inspired mine. At first, I thought she was crazy. I mean, you know, it's cool and all, but I didn't think that would work for us. And then watching her, and suddenly felt like that we were supposed to do that too. So first of all, the men kind of talked about how the space issue is really hard for them, moving into such a tiny space and having people around you all the time. And I think as moms, we are slightly used to that, because no matter how big your house is, your kids are always within,
On top of you.
Yeah, always. But what are some of the challenges you feel as a mom and a wife moving into an RV? What do you think? When do you want to start, Julie? Since you're feeling them probably the most acutely, huh?
For us, it was that the kids were fighting a lot, and we weren't used to, we had kind of grown into some callousness as a family as far as like manners, personal space, listening when people said something and recognizing it. And so for us, we had to really take a step back and say, okay, what does it mean to have manners? How can you just be extremely courteous of people? And we found that just by changing that, it became a completely different experience to be in the RV, not to have these flare-ups.
I think that's so true. I didn't ever think about it, but our kids have never spent this much time together.
Yeah.
And so they're usually out with their friends, but now they have so many opportunities to learn what everybody's sensitive about. You know, when before we just, you know, brother and sister didn't hang out that much, and now when they say something to sister about how her pants are fitting and she cries, they're like, what the heck, you know? Because they just used to be out in the neighborhood with their friends, you know?
Yeah, they didn't have that conversation in the past. There was never that much interaction. But I agree with you, where our family had a really hard time moving into the RV and just learning about manners, that if you want to get the napkins, you actually have to communicate.
Right.
You have to say something to someone else instead of just like grunt and move around them, because you can't move around them. You have to communicate. And I think that was one of the hardest things, but one of the best skills that my family has come away with is our communication skills, which I really appreciate.
It's really interesting.
That not only do they know how to communicate with each other so that they're not saying something that's going to make their sister cry, but they're also learning to communicate politely, just to interact with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would add that my kids before knew that if they didn't do the dishes, you know, that we belong to a community, and if you didn't play your role, that others suffered. But that becomes so much more acute in the RV. Like, we have jobs that have to be done. And also they see mom and dad. I think when we lived in a house and they were doing chores, they felt a little resentment. Like, mom and dad never do anything, which is ridiculous, you know. But now that they see what roles that we have, and that everybody's always working in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's like we're on a ship, and everybody's like, put the sails up, you know, do this and that.
Yeah.
I have no idea what ship terms are, except that there's some sails. So that fell apart right after. Put the sails up and something over here,
else.
poop deck.
I know that one.
All full steam ahead. I know, full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. Anyway, so I think that everybody does feel even more like I have to pull my own weight. And there's even an argument this morning about like whose job is it to finish this so that it gets done. But I think I did not feel that as a kid. My parents were great parents and we had a lot of fun, but they didn't require a lot of work of us. And I actually think work is really good for self-esteem, because my kids know I matter to this family. if I don't do this, then everybody suffers. And I think that gives you a lot of self-esteem. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
value. It adds value.
you know that you're
needed.
yeah, like because you could feel like nobody would care if I died. It's like, well, they'd care because you have a dishes night.
Right?
And that maybe no, but that works. It really does.
True.
Like I'm important to the family. You know, I share this load.
I put in, I add value to this family.
Yeah.
I have a part of this family. I'm making this family run. And I've seen, now that we've been back home for a few weeks, my kids have kind of reverted back to like, wait, why do I have to do this? Like, why can't I just leave my plate in the sink? Why can't someone else just load in the dishwasher? And it's like, wait, what? It was such a quick transition back to that old mindset where like we've got all this space, I can just leave my shoes wherever I want. Where in the RV it was like, well, there's no space for you to leave your shoes out. Like it's impossible. We can't walk anywhere if your shoes are out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been a frustrating thing going back because I felt like my kids were really in a good routine of jobs and chores and they saw the value in it. They were doing it. They knew that it had to be done.
Yeah, that's a bummer. We don't like hearing that, do we?
Well, and I don't. And at the same time, I look at it and I remember one of the reasons we came to be in the RV was that I was farming and doing the YouTube thing. I was so spread out. I never made eye contact with my kids, even though we were in an idyllic, rural, everything's about family situation. And so one of the reasons we transitioned was because I saw my kids growing up without an emotional connection to me. They felt this emotional connection to a lot of other people, but I was so busy
that they couldn't make
that connection. Literally, they couldn't. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go back to being my kid's favorite person.
Yeah.
So
interesting. I think along those lines, we realized we kind of had this awakening in the fall, or maybe we always realized this, but it just came to a head by the end of last year that we spent all of our time just keeping our life running.
Yeah.
And very little of our time living that life.
Yeah.
So like all I'm doing is like paying the bills, cleaning this house, you know, buying the groceries. It's like it's all the stuff to create a life, but it's not actually a life. It's like all I do is like maintenance. And we had one day a week that we called Family Fun Day where we'd go out as a family. We'd visit like a plantation because we're out in the South, or we'd, you know, go to a museum, or we'd go on a hike up in the mountains, or whatever it was, a historical site. And it was like, this is the only day we're living.
yeah.
The rest of the days it's just holding this day up. And some of those things are good, you know, like lessons and, you know, groups that you meet with. But we were really tired of it. We've really, like, it's dentist visits and orthodontist visits and lessons. So
yeah, your day gets consumed. It just
and it's all good
gone.
stuff.
Yeah.
And even if you homeschool, a lot of people think, well, if you homeschool,
You've
you're
got all this
together all the
time,
time.
yeah.
But you can just be just as absorbed in
Right.
other things as a homeschooler.
Yeah, and
You
I
can
even
if you're-
felt like we had way less stuff on our plate than other people.
Oh, yeah.
But still, it just gets away from you, you know, like, yeah, mom's got to go work out. And so by the end of the day, you're like, we did nothing real today. We just did the same thing we do every other day.
Like a zombie.
Yeah.
You're just kind of zombies doing the same thing.
Yeah, like you're just caught on this,
wandering through
like
life.
I'm running in one of those wheels. And so we said, let's go live every day like Family Fun Day. And definitely there's still maintenance of this, but way less. There
Yeah.
really is way less maintenance. And so we feel so much more alive than we ever have. And that's scary to me to have to go back. Because I know as much as you want to think that you'll just keep it all, take all the good back home, we're just creatures of habit. And
Yeah, I think we were living in such an extreme in the RV, and then getting back into the house, we just flip-flopped right back into that other extreme where we're just trying to get furniture back in our house and get, you know, live regular life like we did before, where I'm hoping that we can balance back out somewhere in that middle, where it's not like living in the RV, but it's not like before, where there's still that adventure, that life, that going out, meeting new people and seeing new things, experiencing new things. So I'm hoping, and we're kind of finding that new medium, like Michael and I are now taking a dance class together. And so it's just finding those things within regular life. But we still haven't gotten to that happy medium yet. I'm feeling like we're
it's
just
so
kind of
hard.
lost.
Yeah, it's hard. No, there are moments where you think this this is why I'm doing it, and that are just so incredible. They're, our kids got along and stuff and played before, but I've seen also how much more, because we're in such a small space, much more physically affectionate they've become. And so there'll be times when we're on a hike and I'll see one of my kids go up to the other and just put their arm around him and just talk, and when I see that as a mom, it's like, this is why I'm doing it, is because of that love, because I know that doesn't end when you go home. I mean, yes, they'll spend time with other friends, but for the rest of their adult life,
they've
these
made that
shared
connection.
memories that they have doing hard stuff and amazing
things.
stuff. Yeah. I just feel like I'm giving my children immense wealth in this experience, because
love.
for the rest of their lives, they'll have these memories to talk about. They can even watch the videos of it.
Well, and after listening to the boys talk earlier, I think, there's so many fathers and husbands that spend so much time away from home. When you do this kind of thing, your kids watching their father take control of his family and I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to keep you safe. And like you were talking about resentment with chores, now the kids see you work. Not only that, but now the kids get to see mom and dad be together all the time and see how they work through conflicts.
Work things out.
And that everybody needs to be improving and everybody's imperfect, but to see that processing between mom and dad is something that most American kids don't get at all. It used to be when everybody was farming, kids got a lot of interaction with both mom and dad, but now sometimes we're so isolated from our fathers because we never saw what they do and we never had that day in and day out.
Well, and Michael would see my kids for just a few hours because he would get home from work, we'd eat dinner, and then they were off to bed. And so that was like a really different dynamic once we got in the RV, because Michael was going from, working, gone 50, 60 hours a week, and then with us all the time in such a small space. So that was really difficult at first for Michael and I to figure out our routine. Like, wait, where's your place now that you're here all the time? But also then with the kids, him trying to come in and
Parent
on
a constant basis.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, is that okay? Like, can I say that to them? Did I do that right? And so that was a big learning curve for him. But one of my favorite things that I loved is where we were just at a secluded beach up by the redwoods, and it was cold, and it wasn't a pretty beach. It was foggy, and we just laughed and had such a fun time together, trying to do acrobatic yoga, together, couples yoga together, and we were just laughing and having such a great time together. That was my moment where I was like, this is what it's about. We are enjoying each other. We're finally enjoying our time together instead of just tolerating our time together.
Yeah.
And how much of that do you think has to do with when we grew up, I'm the oldest of 7, and we always lived in really small houses. We always had to share bedrooms. And so I always had that relationship with my younger brothers and sisters. We were always extremely close. It was always about that. But we always shared a room. We were always together. And when we got our big house, my parents had a almost 6,000 square foot house when they built their farm. We all moved to our own rooms, and we no longer did things constantly together. And when we were upset and sad, we'd go to our room and we'd be sad and depressed there. There was alone. There was no other sibling to sit there and pick at you until you'd stop acting like a brat. And it's why we're looking at the tiny houses. I would never want to live in an RV full time, where I
the rest of your life.
We always tell each other
I would never do that.
I don't know who those people are. We like the lifestyle it gives us, but we don't want to live in these forever.
But what about a smaller footprint of a house where you're still somewhat on top of each other and you have to interact more?
Well, we have 9 kids, so we already had 3 kids in one room, 2 kids in another, and 4 in another. But when we were, our house was 3,100 square feet, the last one we were in, and we thought for sure we have to have at least a 4,000 square foot house, when we buy our next house, and I don't think we think that anymore. Our home is so efficient now, and it also is so much easier to clean, because before you could have just a corner that had a couple boxes in it for years.
Yeah.
Behind the sofa, there's just a box there and a stack of books and a blanket. You always throw the blanket over there. You can't do that in an RV. And so, I mean, except that counter right now is all looking so awesome. No, but it very quickly, you can't do stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think we are way more open to a smaller house than we were before.
That would be my ideal, is because, you know, like what you're saying, like when I have to call the kids upstairs because they've left their dishes out, it's really obnoxious for them. When you're in an RV, it's 5 steps.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't have to yell at anybody. It's like, hey, you forgot this, and they walk on over. But in a big house, it really is like a hike. It feels like, you know, they're coming up from the basement and, you know, across this house. And, you know, Reese, my oldest, will walk around being like, oh, where is my lacrosse stuff? Why is this house so big? You know.
So funny. Something else that I think we have forgotten has changed is how much more we're outside. We eat almost all of our meals outside, and also it's just you have to go outside so you can get some fresh air. And I remember, because we were watching some old videos the other day, that when we went on our first test run of this RV, Esther and a couple of other kids were like, it's so fun, we're outside so much more. It's awesome. I love how much we're outside and how much we get to experience the earth, you know, and being outside. But I think it is a lifestyle, but it's an incredible lifestyle.
It is an incredible lifestyle.
And I mean, right now, what you can't see behind the camera, we're looking out at this beautiful blue reservoir surrounded by yellow hills and mountains and it's,
boats on it.
Yeah.
And the sound of really cute little kids.
I know,
giggling out the
laughing
window.
and playing outside. It's
which
awesome.
you can probably hear. But so it is. It's for me. I feel ruined. We don't plan on going back to living in a house, traditional house, for a long time. So it's, I think for moms, we get to spend even more time with our kids, but we get the gratifying blessing of having dads there too.
Yeah,
I actually, years ago, I read Little House in the Big Woods to my kids out loud. And I'm like, Pa is there all the time.
I'm reading
And
Little House on the Prairie to Maryland right
it's
now.
such a
so
good
sweet.
story.
I
And
love
like,
it.
Pa's there.
Yeah.
He's like actually part of their family. And I thought, Mike's never here. And I want Mike to be like Pa. And, you know, when he's building the cabin, I think that might be, is it Little House on the Prairie when he's building their cabin?
Yeah, he builds their cabin.
Man, Pa's so sexy.
I've never heard him described that way.
No, but I really wanted Mike to be able to come home. And what he did with his time was what Pa did. And that was kept the family running. Well, if Paul left home, it was to go get food for the family, you know, to hunt, or to go get some supplies to help build the door, you know. But his kids were all alongside him, and I don't think we realize how in the last 100 years, how drastically we've changed the family dynamic.
Yeah, we definitely have.
I think before that, dads were there, and with the Industrial Revolution, dads left, and that left a big hole in the family. And for all three of us, I think we're really, really glad to have Mom and Dad there.
Yeah, I love it. It was definitely a hard transition for him to find his
Mike
place.
too,
He felt like weird. I felt weird. I kind of felt like he was encroaching on my space. But I love it. I can't imagine not having him here with me all the time.
Well, because in the beginning, isn't it that you kind of train yourself to be a single parent
Mm-hmm.
almost? When
Yeah.
you train yourself to do everything, and then when he comes in and tries to help,
It's
it's like,
my
I've learned how to do
territory.
this a particular way so that I can get
And
everything
you feel like
done.
your value's
Yeah.
gone too.
Yeah.
And Mike felt like his value was gone. Like, it's not manly to be home with my kids.
Yeah.
Because men just talk
Yeah.
about like how many hours they're working and what they're, you know, and he
And
felt
how much
like,
they brought in.
yeah, and I'm home with my kids, and so I'm not manly, which is just crazy. But yeah, it was a tough transition for us too. But now,
Now you can interchange. Now it's like we're both just parents. If
Yeah.
a child needs something, I can do it too.
Right.
And we're considerate of each other and what we would prefer to do, but we're both capable of it. It's not like we're being picked on. And the amount you can rely on your spouse rather than feeling like it's a you or me, one of us has to win. It's a, well, we sure listened to each other and now we can work through it. And because we have no other alternative, we're stuck in the same space.
yeah,
We're all here. We're all in it
So-
together.
I'm a total believer in that. And if you want that in your life, I mean, when Michael and I dreamed of that for years, for him to come home, and saw no path to that. He wasn't a computer guy. We didn't have our own business. You know, we saw no way to have that happen, but the desire was there. And so if you have that desire to either be a family full time, be together full time, or travel full time, or whatever it is, I promise, and I think we'd all say that the desire is it's like half the work.
Yeah.
Just keeping that there and constantly reassessing how you can get to that goal.
And it's a good desire. It's a worthy desire.
Yeah.
It's a righteous desire.
Yeah.
And I think if that is a desire, those things, those opportunities will come into your life, and you'll recognize them as that opportunity, and you can take advantage of those opportunities, which I think is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Be careful what you pray for. Because sometimes it'll be something like you really felt like it was that important. Dad needs to come home. Dad needs to come home. And we could have done it a long time ago, but we wouldn't because we felt like it was irresponsible.
Yeah, we kind of felt like that too.
And it wasn't until John hurt his back and we're like, he's going to have a little bit of a recovery here. We have a little bit of income coming in. This could augment our income if we did it right now. Well, we should have been a little more careful about how we asked for this prayer to come true, but here is this opportunity. If we don't take it, we probably won't have this opportunity again. So I think that prayer, and very specific prayers about what you're actually asking for, like, I think the more specific you can be in your prayers, the better the transition. Yeah.
So, hooray for families.
Yay!
Hooray for goals, and hooray for this beautiful, beautiful world we live in. I know that it seems crazy, and it seems like is everything falling apart and everything's changed. Sometimes we'll get comments like, wow, if only more people were like you. And it's like, there are tons of people.
Yeah. There's good people everywhere.
You think when you watch the news and you hear all of these stories on social media, like...
that's not the majority.
It isn't.
That's the minority.
It really is. I shouldn't say this on here, but we barely even lock our doors.
Right.
We don't.
We don't worry.
And we don't have, we meet kind people everywhere we go. We feel like the world is still so beautiful.
It is. Beautiful people everywhere, of all faiths, all races, all...
Yeah, and there are still adventures to be had. So I don't want you to start closing up your shop feeling like it's in the wind-up scene and that you need to stop dreaming and just start planning for the end. Whatever that means, I really want you to still know that there's a full life to be lived well till you're 100 years old, and you'll have so many stories and adventures to tell your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So, yeah.
We end with a high five.
Yeah, it's awesome. Go after it and
live your good story.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I want you to go check out everybody's channel. We've got so many. Tell them what you did, Julie, on your channel.
The homesteading before?
No, on what of this collaboration.
I had each of these girls on individually, and we talked about just some things that I've been curious about from watching their channel. So they're more like a very impromptu little visit on the bed with Marisa and also with Megan.
Yeah. So over on that, we talked about getting alone time with your spouse, getting that quality time in. And you also have the awesome bloopers from the men's conversation.
So funny. Very silly.
And if you want to go check out Marisa's channel, what do you have on your channel?
So I have the 3 men talking about the logistics of RVing and that transition into, living that lifestyle and the pros and cons of it and what they expected and what hasn't turned out like expected.
They were hilarious.
It was awesome.
And they were all like, we were all sitting on the other side of the camera. They're always they were all terrified. Is that the right thing to say? Is that what my wife wants me to say? Yeah. So it's good for them to have powerful women in their lives. Yeah. No, and so go check that out and like and subscribe their pages. It's really fun that we're all in different transitions. I've been loving watching both of their channels and seeing and comparing notes. So it's fun. So go check it out. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
So do you want me to try and do that with